Thank you all for joining me. My name is Peretz, and I'm a principal engineer in Epsagon CTO office. And in the last few years, since the very first days of Epsagon, I've been working really closely with our customers. And a lot of the sessions that we've conducted with them is to deeply analyze their systems and see how they can utilize Epsagon to first visualize their microservices and properly monitor them. And one of the hot topics that came in those sessions is alert fatigue and how to avoid it. And I'm going to use all of the experience now to share with you in this lightning talk some of the strategies on how to use the right observability strategy of that will allow you to avoid alert fatigue. So what we're going to discuss today is, first of all, give you a very quick overview of Epsagon as this practical APM tool for engineers. We're going to talk a little bit what is exactly alert fatigue and how do we experience and how can be aware even if we have or don't have alert fatigue, because most of us are not even aware that we are experiencing alert fatigue. And the second thing will be to just share with you the what's the right strategy to avoid such events. And we're going to talk about how to understand who, when, and where should be alerted and where alerts should come from in order for us to be able to build a much more practical, I would say, alerts. So let's just jump right into our dashboard. So for those of you who are not familiar with Epsagon, you can go to demo.epsagon.com. It's our demo environment where we show you exactly how we use the data that comes from these services using our tracing libraries to aggregate that data and, first of all, visualize that data. So one of the tools that we give is called the service map. And the service map basically takes all the data coming from all of your services and aggregates them over time. And this can give you a very clear view into how your system operates in any given time. And what we see here in this picture is a group of services. We have around 6 Lambda functions that are communicating with each other, some directly, some asynchronically, like services like SNS, or even directly to HTTP request, or even doing third-party outgoing request. And just by looking at this picture, you can get a real-time view of how exactly your system operates. And from here on, you can even drill down into specific requests. So our tracer screen allows you to scan through all this trace data, and everything is being collected automatically. You don't need to annotate anything. And that will allow you to view requests individually and not aggregated through time, meaning you can take a glimpse into a specific request as it propagates through multiple services within your system. And you can see all the connections between them, and not only who calls who, but also the payload that will extremely assist your engineers into troubleshooting, meaning if something broke last night and you want to reproduce it, then you no longer need to, because that trace data is available in this dashboard that will show you not only who failed and when, but also what were the other services that actually were involved. And sometimes these services can come from different teams. Now, other than the troubleshooting aspect, and like drilling, going back directly into the topic that we have today, is how can we basically create better alerts, and what are the alerts capabilities within such tools? So Epsagon integrates with multiple alert channels such as Slack, PagerDuty, and way more, and even specific custom things like webhooks. And this alert screen allows you to create alerts. Now, as I said in the beginning, one of the main hot topics that we see with customers is that are experiencing alert fatigue. And I think I managed to pretty much narrow it down, because these customers don't ask the 3 main questions before they are setting up alerts. So the first question is who? Who do we want to be alerted on whenever something breaks? So there is this tendency to put all of the alerts into one main channel. Usually, engineers are talking through Slack or through Teams, then it makes more sense to create an additional Slack channel. You probably all have this production alerts channel that a lot of your engineers and product management and everyone are there in the same channel, and different teams are exactly in the channel, and that channel is called production errors. And people tag one another, and it's really hard to look at this channel and not immediately just mute it. Like we all just have this tendency to mute it because it's overwhelming, and that is a direct symptoms of what's called an alert fatigue, meaning I'm so exhausted with the alerts that I get that I don't even able to differentiate between what's a good alert and what's an alert that I don't care. I want to be able to differentiate between my system outage than just a random exception that I can pretty much handle without waking people in the middle of the night. Now, Epsagon allows you to use that data that we saw here in the trace, such as the payload or the communication between services, into creating smart alerts based on the payload. Meaning, if you have a service that is currently handling customers, you can be alerted when the vast majority of your customers are experiencing that just by aggregating on that customer identifier. I will show a much more clearer example here in a few minutes. And other than just the traces data, there is also the what I would say, the standard reason that you want to be alerted on, such as exceptions, getting out of memory. When it comes to serverless functions, for example, you want to be alerted whenever you have timeouts, and all of those exceptions alerts can also be easily configured here through the dashboards, or you can even go to taking sources from other services such as CloudWatch metrics and so on. Now, all of those alerts are being added together into what we call an issue manager that allows you to see all the alerts as they go through time. And just by looking at this histogram, you can, just by observing it, you can identify what is a severe issue or what is something that happens on a regular basis and what is just an anomaly. And with this issue management, you can also pretty much assign it to one of the team members that you're into. But I would say the most important thing when it comes to preventing alert fatigue is identifying who should be alerted. And the number one rule for that is that only the engineers that actually wrote that system should be alerted. Not the product manager, not the CTO, not the engineering lead. None of them needs to be in that alert channel. Only the team that is building that service, that through the exception, should be in that channel. And this will allow you to break down and create small channels that are much more dedicated for specific engineering teams, that whenever something happens there, it's really hard to just ignore because it's services that are directly related to your operation. Now, we still want to differentiate between where do you want to get the alerts. So I don't want to be alerted on my Slack channel whenever I have a complete outage. I want to be paged to the on-call engineer whenever that happens. And the where is exactly where Epsagon allows you to differentiate between different channels. So I would take all of my team's exceptions to a dedicated Slack channel, and things that are much more severe, I want to be alerted in PagerDuty. Now, due to the fact that Epsagon allows you to scan your data and view things in an integrated way, even drill down into specific issues, you're able to just take a specific service. Let's say you have a service that is currently calling to SNS, S3, also putting documents into your DynamoDB. Now, Epsagon allows you to view that service over time and see a real breakdown of which is one of those resources is taking most time in that service. And when it comes to serverless components, for example, time is also money. And also, regardless of that, the time that your service takes also affects your overall latency and your overall customer experience. So it's really important to track that. And what we can see in this example is that on 5 a.m., my DynamoDB jumped from an average of, I would say, we can look here in the average in this table, but we can say that the average is around 24 millisecond, and we have the max of 100 milliseconds. So let's say this is something that is responsible for handling something very important in my application, and I want to monitor that. Epsagon allows you to set up a threshold alerts pretty easily. Let me just zoom out, sorry. So it allows you to set up alert pretty easy about that specific service. Let's say we want to monitor all of our DynamoDB calls and group by their resources. So we have different tables, and say that if there is no value, meaning there is a complete outage for an hour, I want to be alerted, or if the latency is above 2 seconds. And that thing can be directly channeled into your PagerDuty that will allow you to call on your on-call engineers, and basically PagerDuty also allows you to do massive ways to aggregate those alerts. So you can basically push everything through PagerDuty, and it will do pretty much the delivery to your Slack channels or to your ongoing calls based on that priority. So we answered the who and where and when. And when is exactly the time that you want to be alerted on. So you want to be alerted only when there is outage to your PagerDuty, but you want to be alerted on your communication channels that your engineers are regularly communicating to for regular exceptions. And that will completely prevent that alert fatigue that you're experiencing, because only the relevant engineers are actually on that call. And we're pretty much out of time, but I just would like to say that when it comes to creating alerts, you need to make much more educated decisions into what type of alerts you want to set. Like, how can you identify an outage in your system? And those questions are not that easy to find, but Epsagon allows you to look at your data and create sophisticated alerts based on that visualization. And I would say the future of that will be that using our anomaly detection engine, we will be able to create those proactive high priority alerts based on your services traffic. Meaning, if we're seeing that you have a specific payload that constantly is triggering a service, and after one deployment yesterday, the payload changed, and also that service received massive amount of errors, we will automatically generate for you that high priority ticket in order to bring on the onboard, the on-call engineer. So that was the speedy lightning talk into how to prevent alert fatigue. I hope you find that useful. And as I said in the beginning, feel free to reach out. You can email me or look up on LinkedIn and reach out for any question, any engineering question, anything around monitoring your system or microservices. And also, if you go to epsagon.com/PD Summit, you're going to have a special offer into onboarding into our system, which is fully self-serve, and also have an impressive trial with can you just add your services and exactly visualize everything. So thank you, and have a great rest of the day. Bye-bye.